You're watching Byline Wilmington on CBS 10 WILM. Here's your host, Don Ansell.
Welcome back. We're talking about the race card post-Obama. Dr. Earl Sheridan, Wilmington City Councilman, is one of our guests. Dr. Leslie Hosfeld, who's a sociologist at UNC Wilmington, is also joining us. I found it interesting that the same week the inauguration took place, I think it was just 4 days later actually, Wilmington officially dedicated the 1898 Memorial Park, commemorating a very bloody and turbulent time in race relations in Wilmington. Dr. Sheridan, you're an elected black Wilmington City Councilman, former head of the local NAACP. What was going through your mind as those two events were happening in one single week?
Yeah, right after the election, we did the 1898 dedication, and
election was Tuesday. That was Saturday.
That was Saturday. Yeah. And again, it was just a tremendous moment to think that how far we've come in some sense that
not just nationally but
locally,
as well,
because the Wilmington Massacre is a time when political power was taken away from African Americans, and now an African American had become president, and so it was amazing that those two events, the election and the dedication, took place within the same week.
Dr. Hosfeld, did you have were you aware of that synchronicity as that was going down?
Yes. Well, I was glad the monument finally happened. It took a while, so it was nice.
But the delay gave it that extra punch of being adjacent to the election, I guess.
Yeah.
So you got that of the extra potent combination of those two things happening the same week.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, it's such a heady time. Certainly, this whole period has been. There's a collective euphoria, and so yes, it's nice that those coincided. Certainly for our city.
It's also interesting to note that North Carolina went, and sometimes I don't like these labels, but blue for the first time since 1976. New Hanover County did not. What does that say to you in the context of our discussion, Dr.
Well, as far as North Carolina is concerned, North Carolina is a state that's changing demographically, and I think that has a lot to do with us going blue.
But New Hanover County didn't.
New Hanover County did not. Well,
interestingly, New Hanover's always been a bellwether county, and I think this is the first time wasn't the indicator for what the nation would look like.
Yeah.
So
it wasn't this time.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's very interesting.
I think it'd be fair to say that black Americans have felt that they didn't have equal access to the promise of America. Would you say that's accurate?
Yeah, I would say so.
Dr. Sheridan. What did the Obama election do to that scenario? Did it change that reality?
It's hard to measure. I don't know. I think there are many things going on. There are generational things. Earl and I are not that far off in generational terms in our experiences growing up. My son, for example, races, and he's a mixed race child, is not a big deal. I mean, and so I think this is something very different.
Difference.
Yeah, we
with
see
this
it.
generation.
How
We're going to talk. Yeah, go ahead.
Important that is to us. This transformational occurrence, and for people who study race, which Earl and I both do, it was just amazing. But for younger generations, I don't think it's like, oh, well, it's great, but they don't sense it or understand why we were all crying
Why it's such
that
a big
night.
deal?
Right, yeah.
Yeah, I think I agree with Leslie on that. There is a difference in the way that young people look at race and the way we do. I think it's great. I think it bodes well for us. Sometimes I think it's problematic too, because there's still racism out there, and I think sometimes they're so naive about it. They don't see it when it's there.
But they're going to be the future of how race relations take shape, aren't they not?
Yeah, they are. But I just think that the idea, the promise of American life, is the idea that any child can grow up to be president is the thing
Always been
is the
the
mantra,
mantra.
that they've talked about, and it's always been Lincoln. Lincoln was born in a log cabin, but he
Right.
became president, and so now, really in a sense that hasn't really been true. That idea hadn't been true for people of color,
Uh-huh.
and for women as well. But
Right.
now, hey, it has more meaning to it now that Obama has become president.
I was doing an event on the UNCW campus during the holiday period, and I'm a people watcher, and I must say, and you both teach out there, on campus it seems that friendship cliques are far more integrated today than when I was coming up, which was, my daughter would say it was the dark ages. Maybe it was in some ways, but is that an accurate observation? That the friendship cliques are more I grew up in the North. We were in an integrated high school, and we never had segregation of that type. There was de facto segregation, but socially it wasn't integrated.
Well, I think things are artificial at a university because you're friends with the folks you're in class with, and so that's how those would occur. And I think what we know about friendships is that they often occur around class lines, and so particularly in the United States, class and race are very good proxies for one another. And so, but I think probably what we know about how people find each other is through class similarities. It's much easier to hang out with someone who does
Through
and
class.
eats. And,
That's not necessarily a racial distinction. It's
but
more
it's
an
a pretty
economic.
good marker in
It
the
is.
United States, and
Well,
certainly in New Hanover County.
All right, we're going to come back. We'll take another break, and we'll talk about what's been called the most segregated hour of the week in American life. That's 11 o'clock on Sundays. We're talking about church and our living patterns as well. So stay with us. We'll be right back.